What's up, guys? It's Rob here, and today we've got to talk about both the stock market in general and sundial stock because there's some big stuff going down for both of these things, right? For sundial individually, but also for the stock market as a whole. Now, we're going to start off talking about the stock market in general and what's going on in 10 days that could be shaking the market up. But first, I wanted to show you guys the chart and show you that fortunately, while we were moving down during today's pre-market, we did manage to catch ourselves. Now, this is a very good thing, especially looking at the one-year chart. What's gone on with the stock market over the past couple of days is we've actually seen a decently sized rally, right? A pretty big rally, all things considered. Now, we're not making new all-time highs or anything like that, but we have certainly caught ourselves from the fall that we were on. No guarantee that it's going to continue, but it wouldn't surprise me to see us consolidate close to where we are for a bit until this next big catalyst that's coming out in about 10 days. Now, that big catalyst is the CPI report. So in 10 days, on June 10th, we are going to be getting the next CPI report. Now, this could go one of two ways, right? Either investors might realize that inflation overall is more detrimental to the dollar than the stock market, and we could see stocks continue to rally. Or potentially, people might be scared by what we will likely see is, in my opinion, higher inflation. And there is a reason why we could see higher inflation next quarter or next CPI report. Unfortunately, if you look at the cost of oil, right, the price of oil, you can see that was actually a big reason why inflation was down over the past month, right? Oil prices actually deflated, and that contributed to a negative reading in the CPI report regarding oil, and that brought the whole CPI report down. And that was a good thing for the stock market, right? People liked seeing that because a big fear is inflation. Unfortunately, though, over the month of May, you can see that the chart for oil has only been rising. We're actually at highs for oil for the month. We've just continuously been rising since May has begun pretty much. And that could contribute to what unfortunately would be a relatively high CPI reading. So that might spook some investors. That's something to watch out for. Obviously, there's a whole lot more that goes into the CPI than just the price of oil, but oil does have an overarching effect and does tend to affect the prices of not just itself, but other goods because oil is used to transport goods and to produce goods. So that could be somewhat negative for the stock market. We'll just have to see on the 10th what the reading actually is and how investors react to it. Now, overall, I'm not scared by a high reading because inflation is detrimental to the dollar, not necessarily the stock market. What could be detrimental to the stock market is how the Fed reacts, and we'll have to see what Jerome Powell ends up doing about the CPI reading, right, when we get that. But regarding sundial stock, we've also got some good news for sundial stock. Now, a lot of people are worried about sundial stock. A lot of people have noticed that, unfortunately, sundial has been falling for the past couple of months. It's not, or past year just about. It's not been looking great because, unfortunately, a lot of the big catalysts that we've been hoping for have just been pushed back, both regarding legalization and progress on their business. And it's taken a hit to the stock price as well, where we're close to lows. Well, we're pretty darn close to lows for the year. And not that far off from all-time lows for sundial stock. I mean, all things considered, if you look at the past couple of years, we're kind of far off, but not that far off. Now, something good that's going on, and something that a lot of people might not be realizing, is that regardless of what happens in August, when Chuck Schumer is meant to introduce a cannabis legalization bill in the Senate, which will hopefully pass, regardless of what happens with that, however much hope you have for that, what you have to realize is that there are going to be a lot of initiatives on ballots that actual voters can vote for. For instance, Texas activists have introduced a marijuana decriminalization initiative for the local November ballot, okay? This is something that happened back in 2020. 5 states passed legal cannabis measures in 2020, and it's likely to happen again in 2022 when we have the midterm elections. I mean, it's very likely, in my opinion, that we'll see a bunch of additional states. I mean, this is not the first story that we've covered on the channel about states introducing initiatives for the local elections that actual voters can vote on, and hopefully voters will vote how they actually feel, because we've looked at the polls. We know that voters do tend to support legalization on a broad level, right? Both Republicans and Democrats and independents even support cannabis legalization on some level, whether it's for full recreational use or medical use only. And so, in my opinion, if we get that stuff on the ballot, if we can get those initiatives on the ballot, then we could potentially circumvent the whole federal government's legalization, which would be a much bigger catalyst, but would potentially be a much more time-consuming catalyst to actually get, right? And obviously the government is not necessarily working the best for us, right? They're not necessarily doing the best job that they could. Sometimes you just have to leave it to actual voters on ballots themselves to make the right decisions. And regardless of what happens with Chuck Schumer and the legalization bill, this is something to look forward to, right? This whole legalization initiative that we could be seeing, not just in Texas. I mean, there's a bunch of states that are considering this. Something to think about, right? It is something that could be going on and going very well for Sundial stock. You know, the last time they did pump up in a really big way was around here. And that actually happened a couple of months after they had introduced some legalization initiatives right here in November. So, when those states all passed their legalization bills, that did have a very beneficial effect for Sundial stock price and led to a pretty big rally. So we'll see if the same thing can happen this November. Those are just my thoughts on the market and Sundial stock at the moment. Hopefully you guys appreciate the video. Keep in mind, none of it's financial advice. If you did appreciate it, though, feel free to subscribe to the channel. And other than that, guys, have a great day. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.